Hello and welcome to another episode of the Duct Tape Marketing Podcast. This is John Jansen. My guest today is Lisa Mayer. She's an entrepreneur, philanthropist, and co-founder and CEO of Boss Beauties, a media and entertainment brand with roots in digital collectibles that inspires women and girls to be everything they want to be through impact programs, content, and consumer products. We're going to talk about her recently released book, Boss Beauty, Inspiration to Be Everything You Want. So, Lisa, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, John. I'm excited to be here.
So the book, obviously we do video snippets, but most people are listening to this. So describe the book, because it's obviously a very visual book, more so than a lot of books. So describe the book.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll show it on screen a little bit because I know you do some clips, and so you can see it as well. So Boss Beauty, Inspiration to Be Everything You Want. It officially launches on March 12th, just in time for Women's History Month. We thought, if we're going to have the book launch at a special time, make it happen in Women's History Month, which is exciting. But the book features inspiration, advice, real world wisdom, and quotes and inspiration from incredible boss beauties that I've met along the way. Just many different role models from a lot of different industries. So we have Olympian Allison Felix, who has some inspiration and a quote in the book. We have one of our board members, Randy Zuckerberg. So she's featured in the book. We have a NASCAR race car driver, Julia Landor, who I attended actually one of her races a little over a year ago. And to be a female NASCAR race driver in that industry, it's very competitive. So we wanted to feature her. But basically, the book features a lot of wisdom and advice from incredible women role models in all different industries. The book also features the artwork from our Boss Beauties digital collectible collection. So we have 10,000 unique portraits, our Boss Beauties. And the book artwork is really bold and vibrant and bright. And so the book actually can live on coffee tables, desks, bookshelves, you name it, schools and boardrooms of women and girls of all ages. And I hope that it really inspires them when they're going into a big meeting or maybe a big pitch or, something that they're a little nervous for. We want that book to be like it's cheering them on during those situations.
What about us guys? Don't you think some men should actually acquire this book as well?
100%. I do. Yeah. And we have a lot of people in the Boss Beauties community that have gotten the book for their daughters or maybe a woman they mentor, someone that they work with. So 100%, we're building a community of women and men all over the world.
It's probably self-evident, somewhat, but I always like to ask a lot of authors, what would be like a perfect accomplishment for this book? Like, what do you want it to actually help bring to the world or do?
Yeah, for me, the book is something where it's really special to me that this book is getting our digital collectibles, artwork that started in the digital realm out there into the world in a physical format. So I love that our digital collectibles will now live in this book and can be in bookstores, on desks, all over, where women and girls can pick it up physically. So just the fact that we're getting this book out there is really special and meaningful to me. But, my dream is to get this book out there to millions of women and girls all over the world. I dream really big, you never know if you don't put that dream out there, but I'd love it to be in schools, in businesses, colleges, all over the world, and really to reach millions of women and girls. But the stories that I hear even about Boss Beauties reaching various girls in the community, it's always really special. So even when we reach one woman or girl or motivate them, I love hearing those stories too. So of course, any way we can make an impact at a grassroots level too, that's really meaningful.
Just need to get it in the hands of Taylor Swift at this point. I think that's
100%. Yeah, yeah. That's true. That's a good point. They called it the Taylor Swift effect, I think, right?
It's the new Oprah effect. You've mentioned digital collectibles a few times. I know what they are, but maybe some people in the audience don't really understand what that concept is. So maybe talk a little bit about what that actually is, and of course then how and why it's featured in the book.
Yeah, of course. Absolutely. So Boss Beauties, the way our company originally started, and right now we're really building a media and entertainment brand. So we've branched out of where our roots were in Web3. But for anyone who's listening that's not familiar, Boss Beauties initially started in the fall of 2021, and my son was about 3 months old. I'm going to share a little of the story too.
That's perfect.
So my son was about 3 months old. It was not actually the most ideal time at that moment to start a new company, launch a new venture, but I had followed John. I'm sure you saw, it's super interesting to follow what was happening in the Web3 space. Sure. With NFTs. We're now calling them digital collectibles, but just seeing the rise of digital assets with digital artwork. I mean, people were really buying digital assets. And so at that time, we launched Boss Beauties. We launched 10,000 digital collectibles, again, at that time known as NFTs. And we sold them, and we built this global community. And what that really means is that people were able to acquire a digital asset. I mean, we all understand when we go to the store or buy something on Amazon, maybe, or to buy new clothing, or maybe we buy a new phone, right? Or we all understand and really grasp what it means to buy and purchase a physical product that we can hold in our hand. That's not something that any of us need explaining, right? But digital assets, that has been something that's been growing over the last few years. And so consumers started to buy digital assets in the form of digital collectibles. And it's really interesting because you can actually track who owns a particular digital asset on the blockchain. So if you're looking, and if you're listening and you don't see this, I'm showing it to John, but I'm showing him one NFT. If we can actually see who owns these particular Boss Beauties, because there's a certificate of ownership, which is really cool.
How did you go about selecting? You mentioned some of the people that we're going to meet in the book. Did you have a criteria or a process, or did you just want a lot of diversity in who was represented, or what kind of, did you have a process? Because there's obviously a fair number in the book.
Yeah. The way I first started is thinking about some of the real life Boss Beauties in my own life, and people that mentored me, and just people that I really looked up to. So I had been reading a lot about Allison Felix, who's actually Allison holds the most medals of any track and field athlete that is, competed in the Olympics, I believe, of all time. I have to look up that stat, but Allison really inspired me with her journey. And, Allison in particular, she actually had to hide her pregnancy while she was competing and training for the Olympics. And I just thought there's a lot to her story that was really inspiring, and how she's spoken out for athletes that are also moms. I mean, anyone who's listening, you can look up Allison, but just read her story. It's really inspiring. But that's just one example. I really wanted to feature real life Boss Beauties and different role models that have a story to tell, and that inspire me personally. And a lot of different careers too. I wanted this book to inspire women and girls from all different industries and careers, right? So even if you don't want to be a NASCAR race car driver or be an Olympic athlete, you can still learn a lot from the stories of the women that are featured. as well.
You have mentioned mentorship, a number of times. I know I'm guessing you're a big fan of the practice. Do you believe that that's an essential kind of development, tool for anyone? Obviously, you're talking about women and girls, but really, do you feel like mentorship is something everybody ought to pursue? Really, from both being mentee and mentored.
100%. Yeah. I think, and mentorship is something that's really helped me in my own career, and, just reaching out to different role models and asking them, their advice and asking them for their feedback, and really getting into those rooms where I could meet with mentors that have been further along in my own journey. But I think one of the things I would mention in addition to mentorship is actually just getting access to people in these professions, right? So let me give you an example. Our company, Boss Beauties, recently hosted an internship. It was a paid internship for 5 students that are studying computer science. And it's actually called the Sprinternship. It's like a sprint internship. Right. We hosted it in partnership with this nonprofit, Breakthrough Tech, which has an incredible mission. But in that internship, what we tried to do is set up ways for those students to get access to people from all different industries and careers. One of our investors, he actually was on the founding team at Macintosh, founding Macintosh team. He was a longtime advisor to Steve Jobs, building iTunes and a lot of the technologies that Apple launched. So that's just one example, but we set up those interns to have a mentorship chat or conversation with that investor of ours, James Higa, who's just a phenomenal role model. And we like those types of things to be set up in a lot of the things we do, right? Yeah. Because they're then getting access to incredible people from different industries, getting to learn from them, even just getting to meet them and ask them questions or spend time with them. We've brought students down to the New York Stock Exchange to meet women in the finance industry. And sometimes not just the mentorship side, but getting to go into those buildings and see themselves in the New York Stock Exchange or in Apple or in these boardrooms and the companies that they want to work at. We also think that goes a long way, as well as paying them, paid internships, opportunities like that also compensate them for their work and their talents.
Did you find that of the women represented in the book, did you find that there are common traits, common characteristics, grit, overcoming adversity? Are there a handful that show up a lot?
I love this question because I would absolutely say that's true, John. What's really interesting is that some of the women featured in this book, their actual careers, their expertise is very different, like their technical expertise, right?
Right.
Allison Felix is this Olympic athlete that clearly can run a lot faster than I can, right? And then you have someone like Julia, who is this competitive, NASCAR race car driver. Her skill sets are very different than Allison's. And then you look at some of the others that are in the book. There's Olympic softball player. There are CEOs, women in technology. But there is a common thread of what I've observed in all of these boss beauties and women. And I 100% agree and go into your question and saying, I would say that grit and resilience, those are like the 2 things that I notice that's common in everybody in this book. And just the fact that they don't give up, right? And they might have different technical skill sets and different knowledge and things they're actually doing in their industry, but they all have those common traits of having that resilience and not giving up and continuing to keep going.
Yeah, I mean, I think you could mark those as just success traits in general for people who overcome, because you start a business, you're gonna you have to have a lot of grit, you're gonna have a lot of resistance, you got to get up again. People everyone starts in a different place. Some people have great advantages, to be able to get to where they are. Some people really have to overcome things that are, unimaginable in some cases. So do you ever coach people on like strategies, in particular women, because unfortunately, as you've noted, women, have to, in business, even still today in 2024, still have to overcome a lot of things that men don't. Do you ever give any advice or strategies for how to overcome those types of challenges as women, particularly in the business arena?
Yeah, I do actually. And I've talked a lot to different women that are entrepreneurs and founding companies specifically, but not just for entrepreneurs. I think one of the things that I've coached them on is showing up with confidence. So I learned a lot about confidence early on in my entrepreneurial journey, because as an entrepreneur, you're not going into a big meeting with an established company name behind you. You're not going into that pitch with saying, I work with Apple, or I work with
Right.
Disney, or, Barbie, or whatever the brand is. As an entrepreneur, you're going in without that recognizable name that's an established brand or corporation that someone already knows. And so a lot of it is the confidence that you have and the conviction that you have in your ideas and in yourself. And so that is one of the things that I've coached other entrepreneurs on, as well as other women in business, right? And I think that's a big part, of course, knowing you're having the expertise. There's a lot of like technical expertise and knowledge about finance and business that comes into play. Clearly, it can't just be confidence, right? You need to back it up. But I would say that's one of the things that I've coached women that I've mentored on along the way.
Would you say you have a superpower?
That's a great question. I have to think about that. Oh my goodness. I think all of us have a superpower, right, John?
That's where I was headed, because a lot of when I heard you talk about like you have to have that confidence, well, a lot of that confidence comes from knowing your unique ability or your unique strength that you bring, and so a lot of people do characterize that as a superpower. So that's where I was headed with that.
Yeah. I mean, I think what one of my superpowers goes back to that last question, because one of my superpowers is being able to envision something that's not happening today, and maybe it seems almost impossible that you can achieve it at the stage you're at right now, right? But I do really put those things on my vision board. Like a few years ago, I put it on my vision board that Boss Beauties, which was a brand new company, would partner with Mattel and Barbie. And clearly, Barbie was a much larger company. Mattel is a much larger company than Boss Beauties was. But I wrote that down, and a lot of people said I was a little crazy. I write down some of these big dreams and goals, and then I don't, see it as impossible. I truly feel like nothing's impossible if you really keep going and don't give up and find the right way to achieve those dreams, Yeah.
And I mean, it's improbable if you don't at least start with that thought, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So tell people where, one of the questions I probably should have asked you in the very beginning, was this, even just this idea of boss beauty, like what is a boss beauty? Like, how do you define that? How does somebody, become their own boss beauty? Is there a true definition, or is that up to me to define?
So, but two answers. I'll share with you how we've defined boss beauty in our book, but I don't want it to stop there. I really want people to form their own definition of what that means to them, right? So I'm going to show you the book. Here's one of the pages, some of the artwork. Definition of a boss beauty. And again, this is just how we've defined it, but we said boss beauty is a woman who is in fearless pursuit of her dreams one who is kind. I added the kind. I thought that was important.
Yeah.
Kind, confident, bold, brave, has grit, and never gives up. She is pursuing her many passions and knows her worth. So that's how we've defined it. But again, I want it to feel personal to anybody, right? What do you believe being a boss beauty means to you?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's really, rather than a definition, it's more of an attitude, probably, right? Would be a way to look at it.
That's a great, yeah.
All right.
I'm going to start using that. I'll credit you though, John. Don't worry.
That's quite all right. So Lisa, I appreciate you taking a moment to stop by the Duct Tape Marketing Podcast. You want to invite people where they can find the book and maybe connect with you and learn more about your work?
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find Boss Beauties online at bossbeauties.com. And then from the Boss Beauties website, you'll find links to pre-order the book. You can find us on social. Our handle is Boss Beauties. And then my handle is Lisa Mayer. And then finally, I want to share one really cool thing that I'm passionate about and excited about for the book is that we are going to be hosting different book chats. We're calling them Boss Beauties book bashes, kind of like a Boss Beauties book party. But we're bringing together different women in business, different industries where they can bring their daughters, they could bring women and girls they mentor, or maybe, a mentee at their company, bring together and gather the boss beauties in their world. So we're going to be setting these up virtually and even in person. So if anyone who's listening is interested or wants to be a part of what we're building here, would love for you to reach out. There will be parts of our website where you can sign up to get involved as well.
Right. Awesome. Well, again, I appreciate you taking a moment to stop by the podcast, and hopefully we'll run into you one of these days out there on the road.